The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To scratch and major itch. So enjoy your fruity pebbles, you yabba dabba bitch.
They're killing! And CM Punk, and I am the voice of the voiceless.
Be the man. You gotta beat the man. Woo woo woo. You know it. I got okey doke by little
Live
Jimmy.
from the Pro Wrestling Report studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is Monday Night Meltdown with your hosts, Damian Nelson and David Hero.
I'm proud to say we're doing things the Vince McMahon way.
That's the bottom line. Why? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Bringing you all the latest news and views from professional wrestling. Monday Night Meltdown is on the air.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown. Damian Nelson coming in here from the PWR studios, and I'm joined by the one and only David Hero and the second and next Matthew Thomas. I don't know if that works, but anyways, we're live here on the Meltdown on Blog Talk Radio, Monday, December 17, 2012, coming off the heels of the Slammy Awards and a loaded edition of WWE Raw. As a matter of fact, probably the most loaded edition since the Raw 1000 episode back in July from St. Louis, Missouri. We're going to be taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. The number to call is 877-317-9772. Again, that's 877-317-9772. Got a lot to get to here on this show tonight. But first, the headlining story coming out of tonight's Slammy Awards, Raw on the USA Network. Amongst the many superstars we saw return and legends back on Raw tonight, including the Boogeyman. I think he came to get me. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, finally makes his triumphant return to WWE Raw, and thank God, let's just say this, in a world of spoilers and the internet and things of that nature, thank God it didn't get out, because it made us as fans that much more excited to see the Nature Boy back in a WWE ring. Let's go around the room now and talk about this moment that was tonight. Ric Flair coming out to present the Superstar of the Year award, that award going to John Cena, who then granted it back over to the Nature Boy Ric Flair, which prompted CM Punk to come out and confront Ric Flair, and then mayhem erupted as a brawl occurred in the ring after Ric Flair attempted to have a fight with a broken and injured CM Punk, which of course brought out the Shield and Daniel Bryan, Kane, just mayhem on Raw during the top of the second hour of that broadcast. But let's just talk about it. Ric Flair, the 16-time champion, the 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, one of the most legendary names in the wrestling business, back on Raw tonight. David Hero, what a moment.
It was a fantastic moment. Everyone's been wondering, when is the Nature Boy going to return to Raw? And he did. And look who he goes right into a program with. Not a program for tonight. He's up there with John Cena, up there with CM Punk, the two biggest stars on the Raw brand, and then he goes into a deal with the Shield. So, I mean, obviously Ric Flair main eventing a main event Raw, coming in, and definitely got a great spot to be a part of.
Matthew, Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, long talked about, but finally happened tonight, return on WWE Raw. How did it strike you?
It was a moment of just one of those moments of just pure, genuine surprise. And the way that he was used tonight, it wasn't a matter of getting Ric Flair up there for one segment to present a Slammy, get some applause, and then walk off. They took some time with him tonight. You got the interaction between him and Cena. You got the interaction between him and Punk and Heyman. And then you had the involvement with the Shield. So it was bringing Flair back and bringing him back with a purpose tonight. I felt like they really used him effectively with some talent that, really, I mean, an interaction with Punk and Flair, I mean, that's something that if you told me prior to going into tonight, I really didn't expect to see, and I thought it came off great. So by far and away the moment of the night, and just another one of those just really great moments from the WWE that'll stick with you for quite some time.
Absolutely, it will. It does. It is. And so much discussion going on right now here in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio as we are live talking about the return of Ric Flair and Raw overall, which was one of their best 3-hour efforts, again, since that 1,000th episode of Raw. If you take the show up and package it in one pretty little package, I guess, they did so much. They did so much tonight. And there were so many names that came back. I jokingly mentioned the Boogeyman just a little while ago. But from the tuxedos being worn by the broadcast team, which included JBL tonight, to several other returns, including to kick off with the issuance of the award for, I believe, I think it was the most shocking moment. It was the return of the New Age Outlaws, the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, back on Raw. First time we've seen them on Raw together since, again, back in July in St. Louis. David Hero, you promoted an event this past weekend in Wausau, Wisconsin, where Billy Gunn joined Al Snow on the top of that card, and had the opportunity to spend the weekend with Billy Gunn. How did it feel seeing him back on the WWE main stage tonight in Philadelphia for Raw?
Once again, it gives me goosebumps. I mean, we spent the weekend with Billy and Al, talked a lot about what was going on, what he's doing now down in NXT as a coach for the developmental, and we talked about him going to Raw. And he just was talking about, hey, it's, goes from Wausau, Wisconsin, in front of 300 people in a big ballroom to now one of the opening segments on the most watched cable TV show of all time. And just really happy for Billy. I mean, his journey from where he was a couple of years ago to where he is today, he's definitely put his work in, and he definitely deserves to be where he is. And very cool to see the New Age Outlaws back together one more time.
You failed to mention, though, the speech that Billy Gunn gave to Wausau, and the running joke all weekend was, it was your last event with Billy's last event with you, as he is indeed going down to NXT, started last week, actually, officially with WWE, to be one of the trainers in, working on the talent that's going to be going up to Raw and SmackDown, one of which we saw tonight, by the way, as there was another NXT talent that debuted, but saying it was indeed his last independent show, his last booking that he had planned to appear for, because he was focusing all of his interest on his new career in WWE.
I mean, he does have a few more shots that he is gonna finish up, but I mean, that was his last one with me in GLCW. And you're right, we did all weekend long. We were, like, jokingly happy that it was the last weekend we're going to spend together. When we took him to the airport yesterday, it's like, wow, and obviously we'll see him again in New York City for on WrestleMania weekend. But, Billy is still in better shape and bigger and as talented as he was back in, the late 90s and early 2000s, today. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe an in-ring return of the New Age Outlaws sometime soon.
Absolutely, and credit to you and really what this show is all about, because as you said, Billy did, of course, share with us that he was going to be on Raw tonight. We chose not to spoil that news so that the fans, just like we are the fans, could enjoy that return. And it was, even though knowing about it, it was still great. It was still great seeing Billy back on TV. But again, so many returns, including Ron Simmons, who once Ric Flair got mixed up with Team Hell No, Daniel Bryan and Kane, with a little bit of yes, a little bit of no, and a little bit of woo, he came back in and gave his textbook saying, which is, of course, damn. We talked about Raw being in Philadelphia tonight, and Matthew, we saw the return of an ECW original, a hardcore icon, if you will, Tommy Dreamer, who teamed up with The Miz and Alberto Del Rio after last night, them teaming up with the Brooklyn Brawler in Brooklyn. Very smart, very well done, but Tommy Dreamer would not leave in such a good place as he was attacked by the Shield backstage near the end of the broadcast. So, Matthew, how did it feel to see Tommy Dreamer from the House of Hardcore back in a WWE ring after a couple of years?
Another one of those fun returns tonight. I think one of the key things with this evening was Raw just felt fun, kind of like Raw 1000 did. It was a Raw where, you know, we've got 5-6 more weeks until the Royal Rumble, so they weren't having to be too concerned with building anything in time to sell a pay-per-view. It was more of a show to, okay, let's go out there and have some fun tonight and still perpetuate a few storylines. But Tommy Dreamer's return, especially where they were at tonight. I mean, you know, that big pop really added to just the overall fun appeal of Raw tonight.
You know, you talk about that big pop, and it's so fascinating when you really look at the importance of a live audience. We're going to talk about TLC since we didn't have a post show last night. We're going to talk about TLC in just a few minutes, which was, I think, a solid pay-per-view from top to bottom from WWE last night. But the crowd in Brooklyn last night, the crowd in Philadelphia tonight, strong, and they loved and ate up just about everything that was going on, except for Ryback. And we saw that last night as well. We'll talk about that when we get to TLC. But also on Raw tonight, the winner of the match of the year, which arguably you can't argue with, was Taker and Triple H from WrestleMania. Triple H coming out to accept that award. The first time we've seen Triple H on WWE television with his new haircut, which he referenced. But one big newsworthy thing coming from Trips was the fact that we have not yet seen the last of The Undertaker. David, does that tell us that we're going to see The Undertaker in match 21 at WrestleMania 29 in New Jersey in April?
Either that or he's going to be one of the guys in the Rumble. I mean, obviously, do we need Taker back? Yeah, I mean, definitely as a featured attraction, much the way Andre the Giant was used towards the end of his career. But, you know, there's no way he's going to come back on a full-time deal.
Matthew, do you think we should see a little bit more of The Undertaker in WWE? We haven't seen him, I don't think, since Raw 1000, which would have been the first time we saw him since WrestleMania. But do you think that's a missing piece of the overall WWE puzzle right now?
At this point, I really don't, because I think over the last few years, kind of like David was saying, he's been built up as that special attraction. You don't expect to see him in a routine storyline, and I think at this point his yearly WrestleMania run or run up until WrestleMania is, you know, there's something to be said for that. There's a specialness that's to be said to that, and I think at this point in the game, if you really brought him in and tried to do anything much beyond that, you may very well risk losing some of that.
I want to welcome all of you who are following us on Twitter, our Twitter name, @PWR Show. And just a few moments ago, a couple of tweets went out. One of them asking if you thought tonight's Slammy Awards deserved a passing grade. The other asking if you deserved a failing grade. Select yours and retweet based on what you think. One of the results of that poll, we do on Twitter each and every week here on this broadcast, in near the end of the broadcast, we'll figure out if Raw was a pass or a fail tonight. And I think I could probably predict what the answer is going to be to that big return by Ric Flair tonight. But he wasn't the only one to return. We saw Mean Gene Okerlund, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and good old JR, Jim Ross, present an award tonight on the Slammies, and always great to see those legends, especially Mean Gene Okerlund and Jim Ross. We'll have details later on in this broadcast in just a few minutes, actually, on how you can see two of them, Jim Ross and Mean Gene Okerlund, along with Jerry the King Lawler, at a very, very special event coming to Milwaukee in February. It is going to be quite epic. But, you know, there were some matches tonight on WWE Raw, even though the first couple of them went by like lightning. If you blinked, as a matter of fact, you may have missed them. One of those being Damian Sandow versus Rey Mysterio. Matthew, I was shocked at how quickly Rey Mysterio got the win over Damian Sandow. It was almost like, why let the match happen?
Right, it was a very quick match, and it just, to me, with that leading off, it seemed to be more of a way of letting Mysterio and Sin Cara get a little bit of that momentum back after losing to the Rhodes Scholars last night. So, yeah, it was a quick match, as were most of the matches tonight, and that's one area where Raw did lack a little bit on this Slammy edition, were the matches. There were a lot of matches that were quick and honestly did just feel like filler tonight.
David Hero, the next matchup was Caitlin versus Eve. Caitlin actually gets the win, but this one goes by real quick as well.
Going back to Sandow quick, I blame you, Damian Nelson. You picked Sandow. I blame you for the quick job out by Damian Sandow to Ray. You put him on the Nelson family, and look what happens. But
look what happened. He caused me to win and beat you last night in the PWR draft and exceeded my lead over you overall in the draft, you loser.
That's fine.
And I am putting it all on my forehead right now.
That's fine, and it deserves to be there. But even Caitlin, I would have rather seen one of the Funkadactyls back in there again with Eve. It just, the Divas division is such a mess and it's so sloppy because right now it's Eve and then there's everybody else. They haven't pushed anyone to be a serious contender for her. And who knows, maybe somebody else from NXT might be brought up because it seems like they're bringing up a lot of the young talent now, this late in the year, as opposed to after WrestleMania.
Yeah, which is surprising and unusual, as you just pointed out. But if we're trying to fill up maybe it's going to be a 50-man Royal Rumble this year, and maybe we just got to be introduced to some of these talents. We'll see what happens over the course of the next weekend. As you talk about the other NXT debut, we saw at the end of the broadcast, Big E Langston get involved in the matchup between Cena and Ziggler, AJ, and Vicky, and go right after John Cena. And it looked like AJ was the guiding light behind all of that. Last night at TLC, AJ, of course, turns her back on John Cena and did so in a very pleasant way, by the way. Made out with Dolph Ziggler tonight, tried to explain herself but was interrupted, but the actions spoke a lot louder than the words she could have said with Big E Langston. Matthew, your first impression on this latest superstar to come up from NXT?
Well, it was a surprise, and it was a face that I wagered a bet a lot of the live audience and a lot of the people watching were, not familiar with. Who's this guy? So you need that every now and then. You need that kind of little surprise introduction to close a Raw. So I think it hopefully will have the desired effect. I think that most likely there are going to be a decent amount of viewers who will tune in next week to see what comes from this.
Kofi Kingston took on Tenside. Tenside loses that matchup, but real reason for this was, I guess, to continue the story between Kingston and Wade Barrett, as Wade Barrett attacked Kofi Kingston afterwards. So another matchup with Brodus Clay taking on JTG. JTG, who I think, David Hero, what'd you say, in 84 in his tights. And what did that 84 mean?
It means the number of days he has last been on Raw.
Sheamus
Are we done talking about Big E Langston and John Cena, or are we going to come back to that?
We'll come back to that. Well, no, go for it now if you got something to say.
Well, what it is what does it tell you about Dolph Ziggler? That program was seen.
Wait a minute. We had a sound effect prepared for when you started burying people. It was like a shovel digging. So you got to let me know.
No, I'm not. I'm just bringing attention to, hey, why not continue Ziggler and Cena for a little bit? You know what I mean? I mean, Cena comes out, costs Ziggler, his cash-in tonight. That could have, brought him through until the Rumble again. And all of a sudden, now they bring out Big E Langston. He knocks out John Cena. And now it'll be Big E Langston and John Cena as opposed to Cena and Dolph Ziggler. Just interesting booking. Where does Dolph Ziggler now go?
To become the World Heavyweight Champion.
Well, maybe.
Which occurs over on SmackDown. Makes all the sense in the world to me because I'm not trying to bury the guy because I've endorsed him.
No, I like Dolph Ziggler, but now you got to wonder.
But no.
You know what? Maybe he cashes in tomorrow night in the tag match.
Ooh, SmackDown is live tomorrow night.
And commercial free. Weren't you paying attention?
Uh-huh. Absolutely, I was. I even noted the fact that it's going to be on the USA Network and not Sci-Fi, which is an important point to take note of. But Sheamus and Big Show have a confrontation, as you talked about. Show bringing out that big chair, Sheamus attacking Show with it, which didn't brought out Dolph Ziggler for what he thought was going to be a cash-in, which was thwarted by John Cena, which led to the main event matchup tonight. The Miz and Alberto Del Rio team up with Tommy Dreamer to take on 3MB. And Matthew, this match was it was a Broadway in the sense that it just went longer than it should have. what a matchup between these 6 competitors, and I don't mean in a good way.
Yeah, with all the quick matches we had tonight, this one seemed to drag on. It seemed to get a very large amount of time here. And for the second night in a row, we see ADR. He's looking pretty facey to me. And to be honest with you,
tonight?
With that, I think he did. I think I saw him go over there to Baby. And yeah, you know, especially with what we've seen with the Miz here recently in this face turn. I mean, I look at all the heels and I look at ADR and what a good, entertaining heel this guy has been. And it last night and tonight, it does concern me a little bit with this potential face direction they're going.
David Hero, you've long been a fan of Alberto Del Rio, even though it's been a while since you've worn the scarf. But it's clear after last night and after tonight especially that, along with The Miz, Alberto Del Rio, they're going to take a shot at him as a good guy. What do you think?
You know what? I think it is the right direction to go with ADR. They've done everything they could possibly do with him as a heel. He's worked with Orton. He's worked with Punk. He's worked with Cena. He's worked with He's worked with everybody there is to work with. Now turning him babyface, it gives a few more opportunities for some new scenarios. The only thing that I think is weird is that they really didn't showcase or highlight the fact that Miz and ADR were a team, because in their matches they brought back the Brooklyn Brawler and then tonight Tommy Dreamer, which at the same time, the 2 guys they brought back that haven't been on TV in a while are the ones that beat the fresh, new, young stars, 3MB. So they didn't really push anybody in the match except for the people that they brought back, which I thought was a little kabuki-ish and doesn't help any one of the 5 regulars on the roster.
Did I miss something? Did the Great Kabuki return tonight?
He did. He did too. Yes. You didn't see that? Yeah.
No. Was he a referee or a timekeeper?
No, he came out with Tensai.
When Tensai tripped and fell, or during his match?
During his match. It was a real quick match, so he may have blinked and missed it.
Was that 1-2-3 Kid's diaper on the head of Tensai when he came out to give that award with Santino?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell.
See how you are?
Your boy... That's exactly how I am. Your boy Ryback takes on Antonio Cesaro. Antonio Cesaro walks out of the matchup. Philadelphia was behind Cesaro, and this was smart to protect the United States champion in Cesaro, because coming out in that matchup where those 2 were going to take each other on, Michael Cole said it best. He said, well, this is going to be unique because I didn't quite see how they could go with that match and give both men what they needed, especially with Cesaro coming off that win last night at TLC. Matthew, what did you think of this particular matchup and Cesaro's walkout on Ryback?
I thought it was a smart direction to go in. You know, it protected both guys, and it still lends credence to Cesaro's character. So I thought it was pretty much the only smart direction they could have gone in. And I will say, the little bit of time they did work together in the ring, I am getting a little more used to seeing Ryback work these matches between tonight and between the TLC match last night. He's growing on me a little bit, I dare to say.
You know what's growing on the Twitterverse right now? A couple of trends, and with WWE being off the air, I feel it my duty to share with you what is trending right now on Twitter. And, it's a name that the fans have given to the new superstar Big E Langston, who debuted on Raw tonight, and that is Rye Black. So you go from Goldberg right back to Rye Black, and it's currently trending right above Stuart Scott, by the way. Funnily enough, on Twitter right now.
You know what though? But let's be honest. I mean, when we spoke, with Billy about Big E Langston, he's a big fan of his, and he thinks that the kid has a ton of potential, very athletic, and it's just going to take some seasoning before he. Obviously, they're pushing him right to the main event roster right away, so it'll be interesting to see what all happens there.
Well, that was tonight's Raw, which, of course, featured winners in several categories for the Slammies, big returns, and a lot of people talking about the Slammy results, specifically Superstar of the Year, which, of course, was won by John Cena, not CM Punk. And David Hero eventually will give an opportunity to school the audience on why that is indeed the proper choice for that award, because quite frankly, John Cena is a bigger superstar than CM Punk. The category wasn't Wrestler of the Year, it was Superstar of the Year. John Cena winning that, and there is no doubt that he is indeed truly the biggest superstar, not only in WWE, but in professional wrestling right now. But we talk about the awards, which of course in all categories were fixed. But one thing that when Ryback won his award for Newcomer of the Year, he referenced Owen Hart and says, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. I was a little taken aback by the fact that Ryback said, I am that change. Really? They chant Goldberg when he's in the ring, and then he goes for a holding suplex to silence them, which is one of Goldberg's old moves. You know what I noticed last night on TLC as well? When Ryback does a spear, they don't call it a spear. It's a tackle.
Well, yeah, because they're trying to differentiate the two. I thought what was amazing is when Ryback, I almost call him Ryback, when Ryback cut his promo at the top of the stage, it was 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was so quick. It's like, wow, they had an opportunity for him to connect with the audience by saying something witty and creative, knowing he's going to be going into a match with a former Ring of Honor star in Philadelphia, of all places, where they don't appreciate guys like Ryback. And they could have done something a little bit more cutting edge that could have helped Ryback's cause at that moment.
Well, that was tonight's WWE Raw. The conversation will continue in the chat room as we get ready to take a brief time out. But when we come back, we're going to talk about last night's TLC. We're going to do a roundtable on that. We're going to take your phone calls looking for somebody who said Raw was a pass and somebody who said Raw was a fail. Again, the number, 877-317-9772. Again, that's 877-317-9772. We're also looking for you to vote on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter. Retweet our tweet, whether you thought Raw was a pass or fail, and a programming update and details on Tales from the Ring, the Wrestling Summit, coming up in just a few moments here on Monday Night Meltdown from the Pro Wrestling Report.
Monday Night Meltdown continues after this, live on Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report, Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio. We're live Monday, December 17, 2012. And David Hero, I got a bone to pick with you there, pal. I write down each of the matches on a card here and my notes and all my preparation for the show. And I thought that the stack felt a little thin, as there was one match missing. You had the audacity to take out of the stack the card with the match with Cody Rhodes and Sin Cara. How dare you? Are you that jealous of his beautiful facial hair?
No, you know what? I just never saw the match, so it wasn't in the notes.
But you don't go through my stack.
Well, bro, I mean, come on.
It's coming up on the holidays here, and I want to let you guys know that next two Monday nights, Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown will be off the air. We will not be airing again until January 7th. As we're going to take time to celebrate both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, which is what the next two Mondays are. And PWR team is going to be taking some time off on the radio, as well as Sudden Impact Radio. So both shows will return the week of January 7th. But that doesn't mean you won't get Prime Time. And while we know Prime Time was not available online this week, it will be coming shortly to PWRShow.com, where you can see all kinds of good stuff, including, we announced on that broadcast, David Hero, that coming to the broadcast for our final show of the year on December 30th, we'll have a major interview, an interview with a returning WWE superstar to the Pro Wrestling Report. Eve, the Divas Champion, will be joining us on Prime Time on December 30th. We're going to be talking to Eve about several things, including 2013, and her win of the WWE Divas Championship, being the only three-time Divas champion in WWE history. Also on that night, we will be announcing the participants, the names, the headliners, the main events of our party coming to New York City in conjunction with WrestleMania 29, Shenanigans in the Concrete Jungle. Last year, of course, it was a Shenanigans Beach Party on South Beach in Miami, where we are taking over New York City with Shenanigans in the Concrete Jungle. And just wait until you hear these names. That's going to be announced on the December 30th edition of Primetime Television. But this week on Primetime, we will have our special Christmas episode, David Hero, of Primetime, with all kinds of shenanigans, I'm sure, including some Christmas wishes from some wrestling superstars. All that happening this Saturday night on My 24 Milwaukee. Primetime Christmas edition this week, followed by our year-end show next week with Eve Torres from WWE. Let's talk a little bit about TLC from last night, which was on pay-per-view. We did not do a post-show as we had some other stuff going on, but a pay-per-view, we're going into it. I didn't think much would happen, but coming out of it, I was thoroughly satisfied after watching it. Rhodes Scholars defeat Sin Cara and Rey Mysterio. It was a solid opening matchup with an excellent finish, with Cody Rhodes shoving Sin Cara down onto tables that were outside the ring as Sin Cara went for one of his spectacular high-flying moves. Antonio Cesaro retains the United States Championship over R-Truth in what was a good match for Cesaro. We saw Miz TV, which is rare for a pay-per-view. Team 3MB were the guests, and after they went after the Spanish broadcast team, Rodriguez comes out to make the save, which I thought was clever, which was then followed by Alberto Del Rio, which led to a match being made later, where, of course, we saw the return of Brooklyn Brawler and, of course, the team of Miz, Alberto Del Rio, and the Brawler winning that smart and fun matchup that would happen later on. Kofi Kingston successfully defended his Intercontinental Championship against Wade Barrett in what was a solid matchup. CM Punk has his own suite where he calls Brooklyn a bunch of animals, and that was well-placed, well done, and gave the necessary heat to CM Punk last night at TLC. A match that delivered much more so than I ever thought it could deliver was what was one of the main events, which was a six-man tag team match. Ryback, Kane, and Daniel Bryan versus The Shield. Ryback getting the least spectacular reaction from the crowd in Brooklyn, but the East Coast knows their wrestling and they know who to cheer for and who not. Shield entering through the crowd as they should have. Chance of Goldberg, this is awesome, and Feed Me More occurring during this matchup. This was a very believable match with excellent booking. It was wild. It was chaotic. There were really no rules, tables, ladders, and chairs being used. And ultimately, at the end of the night, it would be the Shield standing strong over three of the top competitors in WWE right now. And let's take a pause and talk a little bit about the outcome of that matchup. Matthew, this was strong. Very, very strong for the Shield in their first in-ring match in WWE. They came out the victors in a tough fight. And then after that fight, the commentary team spent a good 2-3 minutes talking about how great Shield were on that night. This was deliberate, and it was deliberate to make the Shield important, and I think they succeeded in that. But what about you?
I had very high hopes for this match, and it delivered. This seemed like the perfect scenario for these three new up-and-comers to have a chance to get that spotlight and to seize that moment. And they definitely delivered last night. It was a very, very entertaining, well-put-together match to watch and full of some crazy and dangerous spots. That bump that Seth Rollins took off the ladder was absolutely vicious. It's a wonder that he was able to get up and walk away from it. There were some very, very high spots in that match, and it really delivered. I was going into the pay-per-view. I had thought that it could possibly close the show, but after watching the pay-per-view as a whole and seeing the pacing of the pay-per-view, and especially how hot that Brooklyn crowd was for what would ultimately be the main event, I'm glad they paced it the way they did with that in the middle. But an absolutely stellar match. The broadcast team did a great job of putting those guys over, and very, very satisfied with the way that went.
It was a great match. It was very well done. I'm still surprised at how well done it was and how great the Shield looked in that matchup without damaging Ryback, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. Everything just made sense, and it's rare that in a wrestling matchup you see things where you walk away from it and say, you know what, that was believable, and that match was. Naomi wins the...
Folks, we've lost Damian Nelson. He'll be calling back in momentarily. But Dave, Matthew, talk about Naomi and what happened.
Well, Naomi was the surprise entrant, the surprise victor. They finally go with a different scenario, and Naomi wins the Sanchez Helper Battle Royal, which then puts her into the Divas title match with Eve. And, from what I saw, it wasn't terrible, considering Naomi has not been in the ring since her Tough Enough days. Or
you know what? Just because I'm beating your tail in the draft, David Hero, you took my card. Now you unplug my mic. Really?
Oh, bro, I don't
your
like
2
touching
weeks
your
off
mic.
Is going to equal 2 months off if you keep it up. I'll fine you.
Hey. Okay. Thanks, pal. Go ahead. You can finish up.
Oh, no problem. That's what I do here. Carry you.
Mm-hmm.
Sheamus versus the Big Show. The Big Chair by the Big Show wins the matchup. Again, made sense, was believable. And David Hero, you've been a strong advocate of these two competitors' in-ring abilities with each other in the ring over the course of the last few months. But this matchup, again, made some sense. But Big Show walks out still the World Heavyweight Champion out of Brooklyn last night.
Yeah, I really thought Sheamus was going to recapture his World Heavyweight Championship. But, Sheamus and Big Show have had great matches. I mean, Big Show is rededicated. He's working harder than ever. Sheamus is the perfect opponent for him right now. And, it's awesome. And I liked how Sheamus came out on Raw, congratulated, shook his hand, and said, hey, you were the better man. It just solidified Sheamus as a top guy. That, hey, okay, you know what? You beat me. It's cool. I'll get you eventually. But, you know what? Both guys are just doing great business, and you can't go wrong with either one right now. I'm sure a lot of fans don't want to see Big Show at the championship, but you can't argue what he's been doing for the past 3 or 4 months.
Absolutely. Not at all. The main event, though, the headlining match, was Dolph Ziggler versus John Cena. The Money in the Bank briefcase, of course, on the line. Solid matchup. Didn't expect the swerve from AJ where she dumped John Cena off the top of the ladder, causing Dolph Ziggler to be able to win that matchup. But a solid match, solid effort from the two of them. And let's not lose sight of the fact that on top of WWE's pay-per-view last night, TLC was the Money in the Bank holder, Dolph Ziggler, headlining that show. TLC overall, I thought, was a pass, worth the money, worth ordering. And we're going to find out what you thought about Raw tonight, whether or not you thought it was a pass or a fail. But before we do that, let's go to the phone zone. And let's go to some callers and see what you guys thought of the show. And I believe we're going to go out to New York, actually. We're going to go to Jarrell from Queens, who wants to talk about why he thought Raw was a pass. Jarrell, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Monday Night Meltdown.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Long-time listener, love the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I definitely got to say, I got to see Layla tonight, so anytime you can see Layla on stage in a tight dress, the show is always a pass for me. But Big E Langston, I mean, I'm a huge fan of NXT. I watch it every chance I get, and to see Big E Langston come out, and then to give the big ending to John Cena of all people, I mean, that for me just, I'm actually excited about how 2013 is going to go. I was also at the Barclays Center last night, and I saw TLC live, sitting up in the cheap seats, and I got to say, for them to bring out Naomi, finally to have her break out of the dancing role, to see the Shield come out and wrestle. We even got to see JTG in a dark match, represent Brooklyn against David Otunga, which was a surprise.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, so as soon as that Brooklyn chant hit, the building went crazy, and JTG actually won the match, which is something we haven't seen. We haven't seen in a long time. So,
yeah.
I mean, to me, I got 10 good fights live. I got a good after show today on Raw, and it just shows me going, like I said, going into 2013, the direction they're going in. Like, they're definitely going with the good young stars in NXT. I'd still like to see a couple of the current ones, do a little bit more than what they're doing, especially, Layla and Alicia Fox in the Divas division. But like I said, as long as Big E Langston's on Raw, like, it's just about to get real on in the WWE.
Well, Jerome, give us a little bit of insight, as you were live at TLC last night, a little bit of insight as to the live audience reaction to Ryback when he was introduced in that six-man tag team matchup. It came off a little flat on TV, especially compared to the two men he was teaming with, Kane and Daniel Bryan. What was the comparison, or what was the reaction there like live?
Well, definitely the yes chants were definitely like way bigger than the feed me more chants. The thing about it is, it was really mostly the children. You know, there are a lot of children, you know, screaming, feed me more, you know, maybe like moms and stuff, but I would probably say from like an adult standpoint, the Ryback chants were like 50-50, but I mean, everybody went crazy for Daniel Bryan. You know, everybody booed Cena out of the building as usual. Even Ziggler, when Ziggler did his interview, you know, as soon as they showed his face, the crowd went bananas, and when Ziggler came out, I mean, it was clear who they thought, you know, they should win the Money in the Bank ladder match, because the entire building was completely behind Dolph Ziggler in that match. So it was definitely good. It was definitely good energy. Definitely good energy.
Excellent. Well, Jarrell, thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate you staying up late on a Monday with us, and hopefully we'll see you at the Shenanigans in the Concrete Jungle Party that we're going to be throwing in New York as part of WrestleMania weekend. David, one thing I want to ask you about what Jarrell said there, referenced Dolph Ziggler and the reaction that he got in Brooklyn last night. Is it simply because he was the anti-Cena on that night, or because Dolph Ziggler has finally made it with the audience?
I think it's both. I mean, the fans love to boo John Cena, and let's face it, Dolph Ziggler is the fans' darling. He's the total package, and now he's starting to get his promo skills up to that main event level. He's starting to get comfortable being Dolph Ziggler, and he's one of the best in-ring performers that the company has right now. So people are a little tired of John Cena. They know, but you know what? You can be tired of John Cena all you want, but what does he do? This entire year of 2012, all he has done has been putting people over, trying to help make other stars. And I guess you really can't fault him. He's been the team player, with the exception of beating Brock Lesnar. I don't think he's really had another significant victory all year long.
Well, thank you for that. I guess you could call it insight. Well, let's go now to the results of tonight's poll, and I want to thank all of you for the active conversation in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio. Hundreds of you discussing tonight's WWE Raw broadcast, where Ric Flair made his return to WWE. You know, I read on all the sheets, David Hero, all the wrestling news sites, that due to the litigation between TNA and WWE, it'd be a long time before we saw Ric Flair in WWE. Did you see that too?
You know what? I saw Ric Flair. I couldn't believe it was Ric Flair. But this was the right way to bring him back. Introduce him. Let him do the slammies. Like I said, get the rub with Punk and Cena, and then do the deal with the Shield. Have the backstage segment with Team Hell No. Well done. And, you know, I'm happy for Ric Flair. The WWE is where Ric Flair is supposed to be. So he's supposed to end his career. And you know he enjoyed every moment of being back there tonight.
Absolutely, he did, and we enjoyed it as fans watching him as well, and it seems as if most of you as well loved it too, because the results of tonight's pass-fail polling shows 73% of you saying Raw deserves a passing grade, with 27% saying no, it did not. Now, if we go back to a couple of weeks ago, last time we did the poll, it was about the same, 70-30, so slightly few more of you felt that Raw was strong tonight versus how many did a couple of weeks ago. But regardless, it's you, the fans, who make the decision, not just what the television ratings say or what the Twitter feeds say. Tonight you thought Raw was a pass. David Hero, would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Absolutely. Passing with flying colors tonight.
Well, on that note, we're going to leave you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to welcome you to tune into the final edition of the Sudden Impact Radio broadcast for the year, which occurs this Thursday night right here on Blog Talk Radio. And then Primetime will return online this Saturday with our big Christmas episode. And tickets go on sale tomorrow at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 12 o'clock tomorrow, via Ticketmaster for the Wrestling Summit. Tales from the Ring, good old JR, me, Gene Okerlund, and Jerry the King Lawler going to be coming to Milwaukee and sitting on stage for 90 minutes talking about wrestling. It's stories from the past, it's opinions on now, and thoughts on the future from 3 wrestling legends. Only PWR can bring that event to you, and it's going to be occurring in Milwaukee on Friday, February 22nd. Sales from the Ring, the Wrestling Summit. Tickets on sale tomorrow. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity at Ticketmaster.com. For David Hero, Matthew Thomas, and the man they call Meathead, I want to say thank you for tuning in. I want to wish all of you a happy holiday, at least those of you who just listened to us here on radio, happy holiday, and a safe and pleasant new year. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again this Saturday on Primetime Television. So long, everyone.